Kristen. I am the artist behind Wicked Wreaths and now amateur puppet maker. This is Falkor, as many of you know, especially the millennials out there. He is a hand puppet and also a costume shoulder puppet. I'm not quite sure, but he's like a fur coat and he's really, really hot. But anyways, so I just wanted to show you how I made Falkor. This is my first how-to video, so please be gentle with me. The inspiration behind Falkor came from a few other creators that I will link in the description below. I hope you enjoy.
So the first thing you need to do is you need to buy a pattern, especially if you haven't done a puppet build like me. I bought mine from another creator called Keep Drawing Charlie that I will link in the description below. Then all I had to do was print out the pattern and cut it out. Then you trace that pattern on EVA foam, which I bought mine from Amazon. I bought 3 different sizes, 5mm, 6mm, and 10mm. Now you take a really sharp razor blade and you cut out the EVA foam. Now that the pieces are all cut out, you can start gluing them together using rubber cement. This stuff smells terrible and will give you a headache fast, so make sure you wear a ventilator and do it in a space that's very ventilated. One of the cool parts about this pattern is it comes with markings that you can just line up as you're gluing, and it makes it so much easier to see what you're doing. Here's the finished head. Now I wanted to take that head and make it look a little more like Falkor. I added some foam to his muzzle, cut out his nostrils, and then added some foam clay to his nose to give it some more definition. I also wanted to add a bottom lip because I knew you were going to see his bottom jaw very well. Then I cut out a tongue for him and some teeth, and I laid them all in there with just some hot glue. Now I painted his tongue, lower jaw, and teeth. Then all I had to do was hot glue fur to his lower jaw. Moving back onto the head, I cut out some eye sockets for him and added more foam to his muzzle. Then it was time to start hot gluing the fur to his head. I do have a couple of tricks when it comes to working with craft fur. You always want to start on the bottom or the furthest layer away and work your way towards the front or the top. Also, when cutting craft fur, you should either brush the hair away from where you're going to cut or slide the scissors in between the hair and the actual padding of the fabric. I did use 2 different types of fur. One was longer than the other. When cutting the fur around his eyes, I did use the pattern to help me make a template. Then I cut out some ear shapes, hot glued fabric to them, and then rubber cemented them to the head. Now it's time to make the hinge piece that connects the upper and lower half of his head. I learned this from another creator, Maksy, which I will link in the description below. Essentially, you take a small piece of plastic tube and then you melt it so both sides flare out and create a rivet. He's starting to look like Falkor. Then I took clumps of fur that I would cut from the fabric and hot glued it into the seam where the 2 pieces of the fur met on his head. This makes the fur blend much easier. Then I went back and painted some more details around his nose. I may have enjoyed drawing his nose too much. There are so many options you can do for the eyes. I decided to mold mine from polymer clay because it's what I'm used to using. He kind of looks like a zombie here. But it was short-lived because then I painted his eyes. Falkor has dark brown eyes that make his eyes almost look black, and his irises almost touch with no white showing. Then I used some resin to give his eyeballs that super shiny wet look, and then airbrushed some pink highlights. I hot glued some felt in between the two jaws to cover the gap. Now his head is done and I couldn't be happier with the results. Now I have to work on his body. I made a pattern by laying on the floor on a piece of paper and tracing my arms onto it. Here you see me make an inner sleeve just because I wanted it to be something cool and comforting in that hot fur coat. I didn't take much video of me sewing the coat piece, but here it is, and me being goofy looking like Cruella de Vil. You will find white fur everywhere for days, just so you know. When I attached the head to the body, I actually used a piece of wire to sew them together to give it more durability. Then to make it blend better, I went back and stitched it with a needle and thread. And here he is. He is laying across my dining room table, so he's very large.
Thank you so much for checking out my video. Please subscribe or comment if you want to see more. Thank you.